Tsavo, West Reserve. Late morning. A female elephant limped through the acacia scrub, moving in uneven, labored strides toward the Tsavo River. Her right flank bore the dark, streaked lines of dried mud, and her left hind leg dragged slightly with each step. The contractions were visible now, shallow pulses shifting beneath her wide side, then tightening again like a slow wave. She paused near a fallen branch, steadied herself, then continued forward. The dust along her back was undisturbed, proof she had not lain down in hours. The river lay ahead, just beyond the ridge, its presence marked by the subtle change in air, cooler, damp. She lifted her trunk once, but made no call. No herd flanked her. No calves clustered near her shadow. She was entirely alone. For a species that seldom gives birth without others close, her solitude was a quiet warning. Along the ridgeline above, Elias adjusted his binoculars. A senior wildlife ranger, he had been monitoring this region for the past 4 days, tracking seasonal herd movements. When he spotted the female, he expected to see others. But the horizon behind her was still. No movement, no shapes, only her solitary figure, heavy and slow, disappearing into low brush. Down below, the elephant's breathing deepened. Her ears flared briefly, then dropped. With one final push, she reached the bend near the river, where the sand dipped into a shallow pool. She stood there, trembling slightly, trunk resting on a flat stone. The water was close enough to touch, but she made no move to drink. Her sides tightened again. Then still. Elias lowered the binoculars and began recording her position. At this point in labor, the support of other females, mothers, matriarchs, could mean the difference between life and failure. An isolated birth risked complications, predators, weak calf response. The soft banks near the water offered no protection. If she collapsed, she might not rise again. If the calf struggled, there would be no help. She shifted suddenly, placing more weight on her front legs as if bracing. Her tail stiffened. A thin strand of mucus now hung behind her, swaying slightly as she moved. Signs were progressing faster than expected. Elias tapped his radio once, informing headquarters of a likely solo birth. The response was calm. He knew it would be hours before backup arrived. If anything went wrong before then, he would be the only witness. She began circling the patch of sand. Once, then again, trampling the grass flat beneath her. Her movements were slower now, more deliberate. She lowered her front legs, then halted midway, unable to commit to lying down. The strain showed in the arch of her back and the trembling in her knees. Her body sagged briefly, then straightened again. She remained standing, still alone, still silent. Across the riverbank, a few waterbuck lifted their heads, sensing the tension but not reacting. The wind shifted slightly from the west, carrying the dry scent of heat and something heavier, a biological signal in the air, ancient and understood by few. Elias whispered, "You're almost there." The elephant didn't respond, but her ears fluttered once, and she stayed standing. There was no sound except the soft movement of wind through thorn branches. And the ticking of risk rising, minute by minute, breath by breath. The sun moved higher, sharpening the glare across the exposed sandbars as the female elephant stood half-submerged in silence. Her shadow curled at her feet like a second body. Elias remained above the basin, still watching. He had hoped to spot movement beyond the southern slope, where the brush thickened and tree lines offered cover. But the land remained still. No dust plumes, no low rumbles, nothing that resembled the approach of a herd. It had been over 2 hours since she was first spotted, and no other elephants had come. She shifted again, front legs planted wide, trunk curled downward into the water without drinking. Her mouth opened slightly. A sound began in her throat, low and cracking. It rose once, not loud, not full, a bellow, but weakened. It reached the air, hung for a moment, and fell away unanswered. Elias looked to the far edge of the ridge again, waiting. Even a calf's reply would have changed the risk. But silence followed. The sound of her call had startled a small bird from the reeds, but no other animal stirred. She was still alone. The bellow cost her energy. Afterward, she shifted her hind legs and lowered herself with effort. Not fully, not the way a relaxed elephant might rest, but halfway, hips sagging, trunk pressed to the warm ground. Her body trembled briefly in the effort to stay upright. The muscles along her stomach clenched again, involuntary now. Her labor had not stopped, only slowed. From where Elias stood, the risk sharpened. If the herd had moved on without her, she was vulnerable to all of it. To dehydration, to exposure, to predators drawn by the scent of birth. If the calf came now, too early or in poor position, she would have no help. He marked her coordinates again and sent another short transmission to base. Still alone, starting to lower, pressures building. The reply confirmed that the mobile vet unit was still en route, 2 hours out. The wind shifted direction, drawing a faint breeze off the river. Elias narrowed his eyes. Her breathing was uneven now, louder than before. She pressed both front legs into the earth and settled her weight. A trail of discharge darkened the rear slope of her hide. Her tail flicked, but not from irritation. It was part of the effort, part of the struggle to brace her body. She made no second call, only waited. There was a moment, brief and weightless, where she stopped moving altogether. Her body seemed to hold itself in place, suspended in exhaustion. Even her ears stopped fluttering. Then, from deep within her chest, another sound emerged. Softer, longer, barely a groan. It wasn't a call this time. It was just breath shaped into sound. The water lapped quietly near her trunk. Around her, dragonflies skimmed the surface, unaware of the life shifting beneath her ribs. Elias murmured, "Hold on, girl." But he knew the math. Without the herd, every passing minute pushed her closer to the limit. If she birthed while down, she'd need time to rise. If she couldn't, the calf would be trapped. If she stayed alone, there would be no protection from what came after. And still, the land beyond the ridge held no movement. The decision was made without words. Elias slung the field kit over his shoulder and left the ridge, descending the loose path that ran between dusted boulders and thorn brush. Each step was deliberate. The open ground between him and the elephant stretched wide and exposed. There were no trees to shelter his approach, no rise in terrain to obscure movement. He moved anyway, slow, steady, without pausing. The shortwave crackled at his side, but he did not respond to the update. It wouldn't change the distance. The vet team was still too far. The elephant was not. Down below, her posture remained unchanged. She had not tried to rise. Her legs were folded awkwardly beneath her, pressed to one side. A shallow ridge in the sand marked where she had attempted to shift her weight earlier, but failed. Her eyes remained half-lidded. Her ears barely stirred. But she saw him. That much was clear. Elias knew the risks. Even a weakened elephant could lurch forward without warning. A charge at this range would leave no room to run. But this one made no move. Her body didn't tense. No warning posture. She only watched, not alert, not fearful, just there, like everything left in her was pointed inward, toward the life still forming within her. The sun bore down harder as Elias closed the gap. 50 meters, then 30. He paused at 20, lowering himself slowly onto one knee. No sudden gestures, no voice, just the soft, passive presence of a man who knew when not to act too soon. The wind carried the dry, baked scent of salt and soil. Beneath it, a musk stronger than before. The unmistakable scent of labor deepened by strain. The elephant's sides contracted visibly again, this time harder. Her trunk shifted slightly and curled near her chest. A shudder ran the length of her spine. Still, she didn't rise. The longer she remained down, the greater the danger. Delivery in that position increased the odds of a trapped calf. It also slowed her own ability to defend should predators approach. In this state, her vulnerability was total. Elias took a small cloth from his kit and soaked it with water. He didn't offer it to her. He didn't get closer, just laid it on the ground in front of him, an offering she could choose to ignore. She did. Behind her, a pair of oxpeckers fluttered from her back and landed nearby, pecking at the dirt. Small details, but they told him she had been down long enough to host rest. That meant circulation was already beginning to strain. Internal swelling, muscle fatigue, nerve compression, all quiet killers in a berth like this. He spoke only once, under his breath. "You see me, that's enough." She blinked slowly, then tightened again. Her breathing changed, grew shallower. The process was moving, but not fast enough. The risk of a stillborn calf now loomed close. Elias knew his presence might add pressure, but the alternative, doing nothing, was no longer safer. If she gave up now, there would be no correction, no intervention, no survival. He reached into the bag, took out a glucose vial, and left it unopened by the stone near her front foot. Another small signal, another option. The moment held. 2 lives beneath the sun, suspended by the pace of nature, by a birth that could still go either way. And the space between them, not empty, not tense, but filled with the quiet understanding of what was at stake. She did not rise, she did not flee, but she watched. And did not look away. The sand darkened beneath her belly where the weight pressed down, still and unmoving. She had not shifted in nearly 30 minutes. A small ring of disturbed soil marked her earlier attempts to rise, but the effort had drained too much. When the next contraction came, her body jerked slightly, then folded deeper into the heat. Elias watched from less than 10 meters now, crouched low, elbows balanced against his knees, breath measured. He didn't speak again. The only sounds were her breathing and the light scatter of dry grass flicking in the breeze. She tried once more. The movement was sudden, back legs kicking beneath her, trunk stiffening outward as her front lifted an inch, maybe 2, then failed. Her shoulder gave. The shift turned into a fall, and her body collapsed fully to one side. Dust billowed along her ribs, clinging to the wet streaks beneath her. Her trunk curled back toward her jaw, tight, protective, as if bracing from within. The position she landed in wasn't safe. If the calf came now, it could catch on the inner curve of her pelvis. If she remained too long like this, circulation to her own limbs would begin to fail. Elias moved slightly forward, careful not to step inside the arc of her vision. He saw her eyes blink once, slowly. Her breathing had changed again. Deeper now, but less consistent. 3 short breaths, then a pause. A shallow rasp followed. Her stomach tensed hard. 1 more contraction, and then loosened. The cycle was slowing. If it stopped completely, there would be no restart without intervention. He scanned her flank. The calf had not presented yet. No hooves, no sack. Just the growing swell behind her ribs and the trembling in her abdomen. The early signs had passed. Now came the window of risk. If the birth didn't begin in earnest soon, the pressure could cause internal damage, even hemorrhage. If that happened here, without assistance, both lives would be lost before the vet team arrived. The sun had shifted to a harsher angle. Heat shimmered above the sand. A jackal barked once in the distance, then fell silent. The river, only a few meters away, offered no comfort now. The smell of water, sharp, unreachable. Elias placed the canteen down on the ground beside him, untouched. It wasn't time to offer. It wasn't time to act. Not yet. He could see her skin twitching along the flanks. Small spasms. Involuntary. Her tail had gone still. The oxpeckers had returned, landing on her back again. picking lightly through dried patches of hide. One settled near her spine, hopping once, twice, then stilling, sensing something deeper than hunger. Elias slid a cold pack from his bag and placed it beneath the canteen, not for her, but in case. If she went into distress, rapid cooling might reduce swelling. It was a stretch, not protocol, not likely to help, but sometimes small margins held weight. The elephant moaned softly, not loud, just a long exhale pressed into sound. Her body trembled again, front legs twitching against the sand. She didn't try to rise. Her breath caught once, then steadied. Her eyes remained open, glassed by exhaustion. Elias whispered, "You're not done yet." And still she lay motionless in the glare. With every passing minute, the weight of birth pressed harder against time. The next decision would come soon, hers or nature's. There was no middle left. A small tremor passed through her belly just before the sound came. Not a bellow, not a cry, just a low, drawn-out groan, thick with breath and strain. The sound moved through the open air, carried without urgency but full of meaning. Elias leaned forward, watching her closely. Her back legs quivered, then braced. Her trunk uncurled for the first time in an hour, resting briefly across her foreleg. Then came the shift. Her entire frame pushed forward, slow and deliberate, a contraction deeper than the others. And from beneath her tail, a wet glint appeared. Not fluid, not discharge. A shape, round, dark, and glistening, moved into view. The calf's head had crowned. For a single moment the risk changed. The impossible had begun. Elias exhaled softly, adjusting his weight, ready to record the moment and alert the vet team. But the movement stopped. The progress held, suspended in partial delivery. The elephant's body froze. Her breathing came in short bursts, as if confused between effort and collapse. No further push followed. Elias lifted the radio and spoke clearly. "Crowning. No descent. Position stalled." The response came with a delay, then confirmation. They were still en route, 1 hour 50 out. He stared back toward the trail, willing it to shorten. But there was no help on the ridge, no vehicle on the track. Only him, the sand, and a mother paused between success and failure. The calf's head remained partially exposed. It glistened in the sun, unmoving. The shoulders hadn't turned. There was no sign of limb extension. Elias recognized the risk instantly. A delay at this stage could compress the umbilical cord, limit oxygen, or cause the calf to wedge too tightly for a full expulsion. Without movement soon, it would be too late. For both. The mother shifted again, but the effort had weakened. She didn't push, not fully, just lifted her head slightly, then let it drop. Her eyelids fluttered. Her ribs expanded, then fell. Another pause. The kind that lingered too long. Elias stood. Not to act, just to close the distance by 3 slow paces. The boundary was still hers. He stayed outside it. But now she could see him more clearly. He removed his hat and held it by his side. Not a gesture, just a stillness, a presence, something else in the heat besides pain. A fly landed on the calf's exposed skin. It crawled across the sheen, then lifted off. No twitch, no flex, no signal. The elephant groaned again, this time weaker, throat drier. Her legs stretched out slightly, no longer braced. She was slipping toward full collapse, and the calf was caught midway. Elias whispered, "You're almost there." There was no reply. Only the soft twitch of one ear and the still glint of new life trapped inside time. The next few minutes would define everything. Either the pressure would return and the birth would resume, or the stalling would tighten into death. There was no in-between. In the silence that followed, the wind changed. A dry gust moved across the riverbed, lifting a swirl of dust, brushing over the elephant's back. The world held its breath and waited. The stillness had deepened. The exposed curve of the calf's head caught the light and held it, unmoving. No muscle flexed. No air stirred around the mother's flank. She had not pushed again in 10 full minutes. Her breathing had become shallow and spaced, drawn more from habit than strength. A hush settled around the clearing that wasn't just silence. It was a kind of pause beneath sound, weighted and long. Elias remained where he stood, no longer checking the radio. There was nothing new to report, nothing more to ask. Every second that passed without movement pulled the odds lower. If the calf remained wedged in the birth canal, the risks included spinal compression, nerve trauma, internal rupture. The window for life was shrinking. Then came a tremor, a ripple across her ribs. It began low and slow, but it didn't stop. Her spine shifted slightly as she braced, tail lifting weakly, legs pressing against the sand. The movement built not from panic, but from somewhere deeper, a primal, final reserve. She bore down. The sound she made this time wasn't long. It was short, choked, but sharp enough to cut the quiet. Her entire frame surged forward. A pause. Then one more push. The calf slid free. The body came all at once, not in sections, not halting, but in a full, wet spill onto the soil, coated in fluid and soft membrane. Its limbs landed awkwardly, splayed at the joints, trunk curled inward like a tight coil of rope. For a moment it didn't move. Its eyes were shut. There was no kick, no cry. Elias dropped to one knee, still holding back, eyes fixed on the small shape now lying at the edge of its mother's front foot. The earth beneath the calf began to darken with the fluid it released. Its body looked intact. The breathing, though, it was hard to confirm. No rise of the chest. No twitch at the flank. The mother turned her head slowly, trunk reaching without force toward the new form. She touched its side, not with pressure, but with the back of her trunk, a soft, brushing contact, repeated twice. The second touch lingered. Her breathing stayed shallow. Her ears remained still, but her body did not collapse. She stayed upright, watching. Then, a flick. The calf's ear jerked once. A tremble passed along its leg. One hind foot flexed open, then closed. The trunk uncurled slightly. A breath came, short, wet, and shuddering. Then another. Elias exhaled for the first time in minutes. The calf was alive. The mother lowered her head further, almost touching the ground now. She did not trumpet. She did not call. Just stayed beside the calf, eyes not leaving it, trunk still making small, repetitive touches. A movement older than instinct, rooted in memory passed through generations. The calf tried to roll but failed. Its legs kicked weakly in the dust, body still slick and heavy. It would take time. That was expected. Most elephants needed over 20 minutes before standing. But this one had lost time in the canal, and the longer it stayed down, the higher the risk of internal stress. Still, it was here, entire, breathing. Above them, the wind shifted again, moving east across the basin, brushing through the yellow grass and carrying the scent of first life. Elias did not move. He only watched, hand resting on the ground beside him. The moment had broken, and something new had arrived in its place. The calf's head lifted an inch off the ground, then fell again. One leg twitched outward, its motion uncertain, but followed by another. The mother stayed lowered, her trunk pressed lightly to the calf's belly as if listening through the skin. The slick film of birth was beginning to dry in patches, clinging to the folds behind the ears, the soft ridges above the knee joints. A few insects hovered nearby, but the scent of new life kept them cautious, circling but not yet landing. The heat pressed on from above, but the wind had shifted again. Cooler now, and coming from the tree line south of the river. Elias adjusted his crouch but didn't rise. His posture remained still, breath even, eyes scanning the brush beyond the water where the land folded back into thorn. Nothing moved yet, but the air had changed. The calf stirred again. This time it rolled onto its chest and stayed there, front legs folded, back legs stretched awkwardly to one side. Its trunk uncurled fully for the first time and slapped weakly at the dust, then stilled. The mother exhaled audibly, shifting her body to create space beside her. She did not try to rise. Her energy was spent. Her role now was presence. Then, from somewhere deep in the trees, not loud but unmistakable, came a rumble. Low, prolonged, and resonant enough to pass through the ground. Elias turned toward the sound, not surprised but not moving. He waited. The mother lifted her head slightly, ears angled toward the south. Another rumble answered, closer now, followed by the dry rustle of branches parting. Shapes began to emerge between the acacias, large, silent, gray against gray. The herd. They didn't trumpet. They didn't rush. They came as they always did. Slow, deliberate, measured. At the front was a tall female, older than the mother, with sun-creased skin and a longer, flatter brow. Her ears flared once as she approached the river's edge, then folded again. Behind her came 5 more, younger females, 1 adolescent bull, 2 calves trailing close underfoot. Elias lowered his head slightly, not in reverence but in respect for scale. He had seen many reunions. This one felt different. The herd didn't call. They didn't crowd. The matriarch moved forward alone, crossing the shallow edge of the river, stepping up the embankment until she reached the mother's side. She paused, extended her trunk slowly, and touched the newborn's flank. Once. Then she turned toward the mother and pressed her head gently to hers, holding for a moment. The herd followed in silence, forming a wide circle around the mother and calf. None pushed, none spoke. They simply arrived. Elias took 1 step back, then another. The boundary had changed. It no longer belonged to him. He had stayed long enough to witness the shift, from death's edge to renewal, and now the others had come to hold it. The calf remained on its chest, legs slowly folding beneath as it adjusted to the weight of its own body. The mother didn't rise, but her eye, clear now, followed the matriarch as she moved past. Wind brushed lightly across the grass. A bird called once from the upper canopy. Then all fell quiet again. Just the circle holding, just the dust settling, just the miracle becoming ordinary. The sun had lowered enough to cast long shadows across the clearing. The dust, once bright and harsh beneath midday heat, had dulled to a soft tan. The calf, still damp along its spine, lay folded near its mother's foreleg. Its breathing was steady now, nostrils widening slightly with each inhale. The herd remained silent, standing in a wide, respectful circle, their trunks lowered or loosely curled, their bodies still but not rigid. Every position held purpose. Not guarding, not claiming, but witnessing. The mother stirred first. A ripple moved along her flank. Then her front legs pressed downward, testing the strength in her shoulders. She didn't rise all at once. She paused midway, trunk curling to brace against the earth. One hind leg straightened with effort. Her side shook. Then slowly, bone by bone, she pushed upward and stood. Her head hung low for several seconds, trunk swaying lightly as her weight redistributed. The muscles along her back quivered, not from pain, but from depletion. But she held. Upright. Present. Her body, though changed by birth, still carried the form of resilience. The calf responded with a small grunt. Its forelegs scrabbled against the dirt. The first attempt failed, and it tipped backward into the shallow depression left by its own arrival. It tried again. This time it rose, wobbling, narrow-hipped, joints loose and unsure, but standing. The front legs spread too far. The back legs followed slowly. Its body rocked once, adjusted, then settled into a shaky four-legged stance. The distance between them was small, but to the calf it spanned a lifetime. It stepped forward, one uncertain motion, then another. Its trunk flailed clumsily to the side. Its hooves made shallow marks in the sand. The mother didn't move toward it. She waited. She let it come. Elias took a quiet step backward, then another. The edge of the clearing now felt different. The space no longer needed him. His role had passed. No command had been given, no sound exchanged, but he understood. Some events did not ask for presence beyond their completion. The calf reached its mother's chest and stopped. It pressed its head into the soft skin above her knee, then tucked itself beneath her body. The herd held their formation. No movement forward, no break in the line. Then the matriarch turned. Her gaze shifted slowly until it found Elias at the edge. She raised her trunk once, high, deliberate, silent, then lowered it again. Not in threat, not in farewell, just once, acknowledgement. Then she turned back, resuming her place, shifting her weight to one side as the group began to close the circle. Not tightly, not hurried. Just enough to hold the center, to say the moment had passed into memory, and life would now continue. Elias did not speak. He didn't record. He only stood for a moment longer, then turned and walked quietly away. Behind him, the wind caught the edge of the clearing and moved slowly through the tall grass, rustling gently around the hooves of the newborn. The air was warm. The sky was turning, and the circle without sound held.